Warning, everything in this video and on this channel is for educational purposes only. All content is intended for viewers 21 years of age or older. All acts are performed by professionals, and all people shown are 21 years of age or older. All acts are performed under the legal Chapter 67(8)(d) here in Nevada. Please do not attempt to recreate or reenact anything you see on this channel. In today's episode, we sit down with Chubbs, a legend, a good friend, and a hell of a guy. We're talking all things about autoflowers and genetics. You're going to want to tune in. But first, a word from our sponsors. Thank you, AC Infinity, for sponsoring today's video. If you're looking for new pots, consider checking out AC Infinity's Fabric Smart Pots. Their heavy-duty material is crafted with double-stitched nylon handles and 500-gram thick non-woven fabric that makes a permeable, tear-proof wall for excess water draining and maximum stability. If you want to check out their pots, go to acinfinity.com, use promo code THESTASH15, and consider saving a few dollars and getting yourself some quality pots.
From the Stash Podcast, we are back again, and we have a special guest, the homie Chubbs.
Chubbs.
What up, gentlemen?
Last time we saw you, you were, I think, a single time. Now you're, what, 2-time, 3-time award-winning champion? Five-time? Damn, Booker T. Okay.
Get it right,
Yeah,
Rob.
brother. We got the 5-time, you know. We got 2 in flour and then 3 in hash. All the way from San Francisco, LA to Germany, bro.
That's nuts, man. That's nuts,
Hats
dude.
off,
To be a home grower, international award-winning home grower is not easy. And I'm seeing more and more doing it. But you're doing it a little more unique, in my opinion, man. You're coming out here with these autos, 420 fast bud style, knocking it out of the park, really setting a standard.
Yeah, man. You know, I started growing with autos. I'll say it clear. I do grow photos. I just grow them once a year. That's what's behind me is the photo periods from fast buds, you know, but strictly indoor, I do all autos, you know, and for me, because I'm a medical grower and fast buds strains have always done what I needed them to do as far as, you know, for my journey, I've stuck with them and I've always believed in, you know, there's going to be a time where you're not going to be able to notice the difference between a photo period and an autoflower, in my opinion. You know, it's not quite there yet, but if you go back 10 years, we've made, you know, leaps and bounds to compare to what they were when they first started hitting the scene, you know, and give it another 10 years, you know, I think it's going to be a level playing field.
I
100%, man.
totally agree with you. And for those listening, actually, Chubbs right now is sitting in front of an AI-generated screen with
All AI, nothing's real.
Beautiful garden behind him. But before we get into that, Chubbs, real quick, dude, little bit about you. Who are you? Where are you from? And what got you into growing, dude?
My name's Chubbs, you know, I'm from SoCal. I grow medically for my son. He has epilepsy and autism, and I've been a strong advocate. I've smoked since teen years, you know. I mean, so I've never been against the plant, but never did I once ever think my journey was going to take me growing for my son, you know. And again, I'm not against pharmaceuticals. I tell people 10 times over, you know, it's different strokes for different folks. So my journey, it brought me down the path of cannabis or, you know, medicine, however you want to call it. And for me, it's made my son a better person. He's seizure free, you know. I mean, he's happy, healthy. He was nonverbal until he was 5, you know. And again, I'm no doctor. I'm just a parent. So these are all just my theories or opinions on the fact, you know. And I honestly think cannabis helped him so much that when you're autistic, it's like a major freeway, you know, and everybody's trying to get off one exit, and it's hard to compartmentalize your thoughts and just, you know, and it's frustrating as a parent watching your son or, you know, kid, daughter, you know, go through those experiences and not being able to help them. So for me, it was a clear, hey, let's try this. My wife has a nursing background, so I told her I'll try to become the best home grower I can be. I've never had a green thumb or garden before. I started growing in 2016 and haven't looked back since. So for me, all this is icing on the cake, hanging out with everybody, meeting legends, you know, I'm winning before I even leave the house, you know, so that's me, brother.
Good for you, dude. Man, I didn't know that you had a child who suffered from epilepsy or autism, dude. And mad respect to you for dealing with that. Mad respect to you for taking control of your own family and your medication and trying to make sure that you can provide a better life for your children and for your family, man. That's mad respect to you. No, you may not be a doctor, dude, but you're a father, and there's a level of expertise and a level of awareness that kind of comes with that, man. And sometimes you have to do what's best for you and your family, and sometimes that goes against, say, the mainstream or traditional answers that you're gonna get. So I want to commend you, dude.
100%, bro. And that it's funny you say it like that because I remember when they first diagnosed my son with epilepsy, I was like, okay, it's just going to be a bump in the road that he's going to have to learn to deal with. I always tell him, because he's 15 now, and I tell him, your diagnosis doesn't define who you are. Just make speed bumps along the way to be able to make your journey just a little bit more harder, or a little bit more difficult, but you're just going to have to go around things differently. I mean, it doesn't change anybody, and we were on pharmaceutical meds for a long time, and it just got to the point where it was becoming toxic levels for his liver and his kidneys. So yeah, he's seizure free to a point, but at the inside of him, his liver and kidneys it'll look like he's a drunk with cirrhosis of the liver by the time he's 25. So it's like, all right, do you really want that for your kid? And I remember the doctors telling me, because he was nonverbal, your son will probably never speak, he'll probably never comprehend, just like how we're talking here and being able to hold a conversation per se. And in the back of my mind, I just kind of laughed, and I'm like, yeah, you don't know my son, and you don't know me. I'm a stubborn SOB. So when it comes down to it, I'm going to do everything humanly possible as a parent to make that happen, and fast forward 9 years, he's been seizure free 8 years. He's going to high school this year. You would never even know he's epileptic or autistic, brother. I mean, normal kid, brother. Normal kid.
Dude, that's a testament to the adversity of his mom and dad and his social network. So hats off, brother. Very proud to hear that, dude. That's a
heart pulling one, man. As a dad, yeah, all three of us. I'm looking at the boys' faces. We're all like twisted eyed. I'm like, man, like I couldn't imagine, dude, having the doctor telling you that, man.
I can't tell you how many times I got bad looks from other parents because, my son went to school for a long time, and it's federally illegal on school grounds. You cannot administer cannabis. So therefore, I would have to sign my son out every day at lunch, and drive around the block, give him his meds, sign him back in, and everybody knew what we were doing. You'd get those parents that kind of give you the stink eye, and I'm like, at first it would I'm a very prideful person, so you kind of like, you want to puff your chest up like, well, and it's just the unknowing and the lack of knowledge that, for me, that's why I do this now, because if I can pave the way for a future parent to go through this journey, make it that much more easier and lay a couple stones for them to walk on, I think everybody should do it. You know what I mean? Like, that's what this world's about. Let's build each other up. Let's make it a better journey for everybody.
If you haven't seen the V-Grow system, you are missing out. It's VivoSun's all-in-one smart grow system that basically thinks for you. Automated controls, built-in sensors, precise climate management. It's like having a grow tech in your tent 24/7. And paired with the Grow camera, man, it is a game changer. You can monitor your plants in real time from anywhere. So even if you're not in the garden, you are in the garden. I've been using it to keep an eye on everything from seedling stretch all the way to flower development, and it has been absolutely clutch. VivoSun also has a ton of awesome innovative gear that goes beyond that too. From quality tents to fans, lighting, hydro gear, all that. And they're consistently improving on things on the back end as well. So if you're thinking about upgrading your grow or grabbing some gear, now's the time. Use discount code THESTASH on VivoSun's website to save 15%, or use the stash on Amazon. Same code, different place. It's a simple way to show some love to your grow and to the show at the same time. VivoSun's been really stepping it up big for the community, and with that code, you also can too. Use discount code THESTASH at checkout on VivoSun's website or on Amazon and get growing the smart way. Thanks, VivoSun. Hell yeah, man. That's huge, dude. And I think being able to do some of that medicinal side of the gardening while you've already been a recreational user is just really a test to how amazing this plant is, dude. That it's something that the doctors didn't even consider as a way to help your child, that then you said, I'm going to go get one of God's plants and take care of myself.
And that's where it gets back down to, I think it's so important to, make it federally legal, because it really made an impact. I had grown for probably 2 years, and, taking my son to his neurologist down there in Rady's Children's Hospital, and they'd sit there and do like an EGG, I think is what it's called, where they hook up all the things on him and do a little sleep test so they could see. He has what they call are absent seizures. So it's not like what everyone thinks of when they see a seizure where you're flopping on the floor, make sure he doesn't bite his tongue type stuff. No, those are different types of seizures. My son has more or less where it's like, you're basically like daydreaming. you're just there, but you're not there. You know what I mean? So you got to kind of really look for it. But it really made an impact when we took him to his doctors down there, and she tried to induce a seizure in her office, and she couldn't do it. And she told me, you know, as a nurse, I can only go so far because of what the plant is and the way, you know, it's still not fully legal. But as a parent, I thank you for paving the way, you know. And I was driving home and just kind of quiet. My wife asked me, you know, she's like, what's going on? I'm like, you know, it just really hit home when you got a doctor that's a brain doctor that tried to induce a seizure and she couldn't do it. You know, the cannabis was keeping him past the threshold of not having a seizure. And it just, I don't know, it really hit home knowing I can grow something to make my son healthy. You know what I mean? And again, I'm not against pharmaceuticals. Different strokes for different folks. If that's the route you want to take, go for it. I'm not saying don't. But for me, this was the journey that it took me down, and for it to work out the way it did, truly blessed, bro. Truly blessed.
I'm really happy for you. Yeah. I mean, it's hearing stories like this. How sickening is it that we have a government? You have a medicine that's actually having a cure for your kid that's making it better. And you have a federal government that's saying, no, you can't do it. It's illegal. Who the hell are they? You know what I mean? It's so frustrating to hear that and like to know we still have states here where people are getting locked up for it. It's like, man, I know we're getting there, and state by state, medical laws are being passed, recreational, so on and so forth. But sometimes it just still feels like we're so far away. And hearing these stories about how it's really helping even kids, you know, get over these seizures and stuff like that. We got to make faster pace on this, you know.
100%, brother. 100%. You know, the stigma is still there. You know that down with dope and all that stuff, and you know, and again, it's an older generational thing. And again, I'm speaking for somebody else per se, but it's like, you know, my father-in-law, he's a retired sheriff. So it took him a lot of years because you think about it, you prosecuted people for the plant because it was your job. And now you're sitting here seeing it save your grandson's life. How does that feel? You know what I mean? And it took a long time to finally understand. And it's the unknowing and the lack of knowledge that if you only just took the time instead of being so quick to be judgmental, maybe it would make it that much faster to be fully legal. You know what I mean? Because people wouldn't be so against it.
Yeah, dude. I think that's the thing is the profitability, and it shows state by state. In Michigan, we had 0.6% of sales this last year were medical. 0.6 of all of everything. It's because financially, no one gives a shit. These companies don't care. The government doesn't care. Otherwise, we'd have it all 50 states be legal for medical at least. Minimum. Medical.
Oh, yeah.
Recreational is another conversation. But the fact that it's not legal for medical in all 50 states is pure evil. There's no other way to put that. I can understand our argument of you can't get it like alcohol, but medicine?
I really think it should be fully legal, man. And again, everybody that's a consumer or an advocate, they're going to sit here and say the same thing with us. So we just got to keep paving the way and setting stones in front of us so the people behind us have that much more of an easier journey and don't have to go through the stigma and all the looks and the unknowing of, you know what, if you would even sit here and take the time to be, I tell anybody and everybody, if you ever have a question, I'm no pro by any means, but I've ran my fair share of issues that I usually can be fixed before they become a problem. You know what I mean? So it's like, reach out, man. And I remember when I first started, that was one of the big things was just the lack of resources out there to know what you're doing and how you're doing if it's correct, you know? So I remember when we first started, you know, managing the dose and finding out the right levels of, all right, how much do you have to give before it puts him past that threshold? Or are you not giving enough and he's still having them, you know? And that's when we realized it was like, all right, you know what? I'll speak up to anybody and everybody just because I'm a proud advocate of this plant.
Good for you. Yeah, good for you. I think it's important to mention too. It's like pharmaceuticals have a valid place to play. You know, it is tradition, or it's medicine. It has gotten a lot of people up and out of ailments, depression, anxiety, a lot of sicknesses, and so on and so forth. But the reality is that our plant has been held back from the mainstream for whatever reason, and you know, it's painful. I've been on your side. I've also had to. My boy's also been very sick, and I've had to make a decision. You know, that wouldn't have gone. You know, it just doesn't go over easy. And what pains me too is that the doctors that looked you in the eye, Chubbs, and said, "You're right," and there's nothing I can do for you. It's like I can't imagine being in a job or a position where I I'm here to help people. I have the tools at my disposal, but I can't help people because of one tool not at my disposal. It's just it's like your hands are tied, and it's frustrating. And it's a testament to how far people have had to come throughout the years to get quality medication and medicine. I remember talking to Todd McCormick, and he was telling us how his mother was giving him this plant in the 70s.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine at a time where it's like you're still dealing with this. You're talking about the stigma and dealing with having to worry about what other people are saying. I couldn't imagine. This is 2020. This is the 2020s, dude.
Dude,
and
50 years later,
this
is still an issue.
Still an issue, and yet families and children are still finding benefit in this plant, and there's still nothing. Still nothing. I think that's absurd.
Yeah. It's mind-blowing, man.
The beauty of what you're doing now is you're able to grow your own. You're able to create medicine. You're able to have like a Zen space, and now it's become a profession. You've traveled around everywhere. You're winning awards as a grower. You've taken it past just helping your family and internally, and you're inspiring others around the world, to pick up photos, autos, and to do something similar. And I think, myself included, I didn't know as deep of the medical side for your brother. Like, that's huge. And I think that's something that a lot more people can relate to. I know McCannabis Luke is a prime example. He pretty much started for the same reason, and now he's also an award-winning home grower. You know, and it's like, when you're that passionate, you're going to grow some plants that are that good.
I tell people, I grow in an AC Infinity tank, in a metal garage building, on my property. It's nothing fancy, like right now my temps are probably like 90 degrees because it's summertime, and again, I have fun with it. I try to make every grow a lesson, whether it be good or bad. And that's where, it comes back to, I've ran across my fair share of problems. Thank God, because again, it just makes you that much better in the end, knowing how to handle them and not freak out. Because again, as much time as we put into these, and the passion that everyone has, they are like our kids. So anytime you see something, it's like, oh no, and usually it's not even an oh no moment. I got 4 little ones. So now with the 4th one, I'm just like, there ain't no blood. All right, get up. You're fine. Come on, bud.
Yeah.
With the first one, you're running over there like, oh, do you need a Band-Aid, this and that,
Yeah, FC.
That's we tell Chris this all the time. I'm like, brother, it gets easier.
It gets easier. Yeah, we call it FCS where I'm from, and it's a real diagnosis. It's first child syndrome. And yeah, I've done the same thing, dude. Kid like stubbed his toe, and I'm like, we gotta go to the hospital, dude. Oh my God. And then you just, as time goes on, you're like, oh my God, you're fine. There is blood, but we're going to stop the blood. It'll be fine. You'll be fine. Yeah, dude. So you mentioned getting into growing because of your son. Is that what started it, or were you growing it all before that at all?
Nah, man. The only garden experience I've ever had was pruning rose bushes with my grandma, waking up 5:30 in the morning, 15, 20 years prior to this, and I had thrown a couple seeds. I'd smoked since probably, I don't know, man, early teens, You grow up in LA, you grow up quick, it was one of those things where you're like, hey, what's that? Okay, let me try that, and I'd thrown seeds. I grew up in an apartment complex, so I couldn't do it, but a buddy of mine had a house, so I'd throw a couple seeds behind his shed, while we were sitting there smoking, but his mom would always find them, right before they'd go into flower, and I'd come back from school and they'd hang over the fence, and I'm like, oh, well, that was short-lived, but other than that, no, I've never had any growing experience, never even thought I would be growing, and it's funny, fast forward how long that I have been growing, it's like, man, why didn't I start this sooner? But again, everything, the stars have to align for certain reasons. I mean, what you put in is what you're going to get out, and it takes passion, it takes time, and if you're willing to do that, you can grow some badass flowers, man.
100%, man. And I think that's where a lot of people, as we, like we were saying with Autoflowers, they don't think they can do that. And I can attest, I haven't found a ton of flavors that I've loved, but man, have I found plants that I cannot tell the difference. Actually, I can. The fact that I'm like, holy shit, this is in the veg room and the buds are the size of my arm. What got you into the autos? Because where you live, clearly it's going to be a little more advantageous to growing outdoors in general. So it's not like you need a faster flowering situation, but what ended up getting you to start growing autoflowers?
When I decided I was going to go and take that journey, to become a grower, one of my first conferences that I went to, and that's the thing, even to this day, I'm always trying to become better at what I do, learning, reading, listening to podcasts, articles, whatever. And there was a gentleman by the name of, I think his name's Jeff Lowenfield or Lowenstein. But
Jeff
he
Lowenfels.
has he has a couple books out there, Teaming with Microbes and stuff like that. And he grows autoflowers. And I remember listening to him, and he said, the turnaround time, I think he was from Alaska when he was talking in the conference I was listening to him at. And I don't know, it just sat there, and it was like, it's an easy thing to go with. And I remember him pulling a picture up of a tomato plant. And if you pull it, you can take a macro shot of a tomato, and it has trichomes on it, and do the same thing with a cannabis plant. And you could not tell the difference. And it amazed me. I was like, no way. That's just mind blowing, And he got into with the autoflowers, and he was like, you don't have to flip the time. You don't have to do any of this. And I'm like, sounds like it's a one trick pony. You plant it and it just does what it needs to do, and you just try to help it along the way. So I remember my first grow, and luckily enough, I got everything. There was somebody that was getting out of the business, and he had a whole bunch of grow equipment, HPS lights and T5 for vegging and stuff like that. So I remember going over to the storage unit and grabbing a bunch, throwing everything in the back of my truck. I kind of made a detailed list of everything I'd need to do, of what I had to set up just a regular tent, or what I thought I needed. So I remember getting this and throwing 20 plants in there. And I told myself, if I could get one joint out of 20 plants, I'd consider that a successful harvest. I'm not trying to grow these high time, picture cup plants or anything like that. Just something to where I can say I went from seed to harvest, and give me that boost of confidence that I need just to get me to the next one, and so on and so forth. And I started with autoflowers, and it just became second nature. I didn't know any different. And, you fast forward 25, 30 grows later, and you're like, all right. And I always did photo periods, but in the summertime, I did photo periods, and autoflowers were always easier for me, but it was always the fun challenge of outdoor growing, and I've tried autoflowers outdoor, and where I lived in the city at the time, I just wasn't getting the lighting, so I stopped doing it outdoor. And I don't know, for me, autoflowers, a lot of people will sit there and try to talk down, say they're finicky, say they're, and don't get me wrong, it's just like with anything, you can cook two separate briskets on the smoker, and one may get a little more drier than the other, it just depends on how you do it. And that comes back to the time that you show and you put into it. If you sit there and catch it before, it's just like any other plant. I water it the same way. I feed it the same way. I give it, the only thing I don't do is change the lighting when it comes to the flowering period. That's basically the only difference in my eyes.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing is a lot of people are going based on their old experiences. I was one of those people, for sure. You have, one plant, and it ends up being the size of a clone, and it flowers, and you got an eighth of decent bud, and it's cool that it just did its thing, but you're disappointed. Fast forward to today, and you're seeing plants that are massive. Again, pound, 3, 4, 5 pound with a wet, of course it was, but for high again, they had the biggest plant. It was one tent with a massive plant. That was an autoflower. You look at your 10 by 10, these fat, girthy, thick plants. For me, those look like photos. They never in the past would I ever think those would be autos. Now the argument, you have a lot of people saying that they're just not, they're like diet. The flavor's not quite there. But there's brands that are coming out with stuff, and I've noticed it's usually on the sweeter side than the gassy. I think that's because of how long it has to grow. But there's some stuff out there, man. We smelled some when I was in Germany at the Fast Buds booth. Sweet, sharp, pungent, hits you in the face where you're like, whoa, that's an auto? Like, yeah. It's like, okay, so we're advancing. What I thought last year, the year before, it changes every year.
And, I think the main difference between autos and photos is I can't clone an auto. Some say you can. I've never really gone down that road or tried to do that. You know what I mean? It's a ticking time bomb per se. Once you start, you got so much time and then it's done, whereas the photo periods, when you see these gassy terps, it's not like, oh, hey, I just popped a seed and that's what I got. No, you bred that to do what it did. So if you have an edge on me just from the get-go to where I got to actually run generational and hopefully lock in what I'm actually looking to lock in as far as structure, terps, whatever you're going for, you know. And with the photo period, you got that little bit of a step up because you're able to grow the same amount of plants, but find that unicorn, clone it out, run it back, you know, and then just basically lock it in, you know, to where you know you're going to get that same every time consistently, to where it's like the apricot. You know, the apricot strain with me holds dear. There's a funky, almost like a fruity throw up, just nasty. I'm talking just nasty terp on one, you know, and I've grown it, you know, and I'll get that terp every so often. You know, I just ran it, and I want to say out of 10 plants, I think I got one that, I mean, it's definitive. There's no questions asked, you know. I pulled that away and put it in a jar, and I was like, all right, no one's touching that. That's, you know what I mean? Like, so I can see if you're able to just hone in on that. And again, it gets better, just like with the Frostbanger. I just harvested those, and I want to say I had more consistency out of every one, you know, the strains in my tent as far as identical phenos. You know, it was like twins all the way around that whole square. So again, it's just a matter of doing the due diligence and making sure you're putting out what you're saying you're putting out. And with Fast Buds, you know, go back to when I started off medically. It's, you know, my son's seizure free, and everyone asks me, well, why do you just grow exclusively Fast Buds? It's kind of like your favorite, you know, restaurant. Why do you keep going there? Because it's good and it does what I want it to do every time I go. It fills me up, and, you know, and I leave happy. So I'm not saying, you know, that they're the best. I'm not saying they're worst. Don't get me wrong. I am biased, so I'll always say they're the best, but there's amazing breeders and there's amazing strains out there. The fun part is growing them, man. Grow and find out what works for you, because I try to keep it so simple. If someone wanted to mimic something I do, I run grow diaries. So if someone wants to check that out, I run a detailed log every week, you know, and consistency is going to be your best friend with growing autos. Find that niche, what works for you. Get the baseline offline or what book you read, but, you know, experience is going to be your best friend, you know. Just have fun with it, you know what I mean? And like you said, you're going to grow that one, and it'll give you one nice, beautiful little bud, and then you'll grow another one, and it's, like you said, you know, fill up a whole tent, and you're like, that's just amazing, you know. And even to this day, I still get mind blown, you know, when I open up the tent, you're like, man, that's just crazy, bro. Because again, I've smoked for a long time now, and to sit there and, like you say, you open up your tent and you look at it and you just stand back kind of like an awe. You're like, man, I'm doing that. And again, I'm not doing anything special, just keeping it simple.
And it's what you found that you like. And we say this all the time. The best way to grow is how you like to grow and what you like to grow. And me and Pigeons were just literally talking about this. You know, if he's going to go to Subway, he's going to get the chicken teriyaki, period. Because he likes that. That's what he likes. Yep. You know, and I'm a simple kind of man. I usually stick with the things I like as well. I venture too far off and I'm disappointed. And I'm like, damn it. This is why I don't change and I keep the same stuff. I'm going back to Headbanger from 10 years ago. You know, it's like everybody has their preference. And I think with how you've gone about it, you found something that works for you. Every flavor that you've brought to me to try that you're like, dude, check this out. I'm like, okay, this could be someone's favorite smoke. It's that unique, that different. It stands out from the pack where whatever we just had may have not been as unique. That one that you said you liked, even if I don't love it, I'm like, whew, okay, that's something else. And I think everybody should have that in their arsenal.
Yeah. I love your attitude, dude. I love your attitude. I love the idea of that. Yeah, there might be something better out there, but this works for me, dude. And that what Rob just said about Subway was exactly what I was going to say. It's like, I know Subway chicken teriyaki, Italian herb and cheese footlong isn't the greatest sub out there because I've had Chiba Hut. But if I'm going to go to Subway, I'm getting the chicken teriyaki every time because I know it's good. It's what I like, and I really enjoy it. It's consistency. And if I don't want a chicken teriyaki sub, Italian herb and cheese, I don't want Subway. So I really enjoy that attitude. And it's kind of like, this is what I'm doing. And if you don't like it, then find something that works for you. I'm not, I'm not trying to step on any toes. One thing I do want to ask you though, Chubbs, I believe it was Oprah Winfrey that said, autoflowers are where good genetics go to die. And she said this in relation to the fact that you can't clone them. You really can't preserve that genetic or kind of maintain that joy or that characteristic that you love. What would you say to her?
For me, it's it's like you're saying, once you start it and it's, you got time, that's all you have, you can do whatever you want, but you only have a certain amount of time to do it. And that's the joy I find in it, is finding that unicorn every time. You know what I mean? You may not get it one run. You like that apricot, I've grown it 3 times, and this last time I didn't get it, just this recent one, I got, that one I was looking for, or you'll look for something and you're like, all right, that's the one. But it comes back to, just like everything, if you can't sit there and it's consistency and doing your due diligence, I should say. Just because, it's like your favorite soda, they don't got a big unlimited, bowl of Coca-Cola or whatever it is that your favorite drink is. They got to make that batch every time. But by being consistent, doing your due diligence with the R&D and just keeping it all, I'm going to say, because again, I don't breed, but the people that do, it's doing the due diligence and making sure you're putting out a product that you're saying you are. And when it came to Fast Buds, I can wholeheartedly say, when that strain says the name, it hits that nail right on the head for me, because they can say it's like, well, we'll say the Z-Up strain. I just harvested that strain. I was fortunate enough to try Sebastian's, when I went out there to Spanibus, and it literally smells like you just opened up a can of Sprite or 7-Up. You know what I mean? Like, it has that lemon lime terp, just wild, bro, because it's like, everyone knows, when you have an upset stomach, grab a can of 7-Up or something, and you just know that smell. And it's just mind-blowing to sit there and put out something that close. And that just doesn't happen off of a whim, that just doesn't happen off of, hey, let me just be a Paul and Chucker, or let me just do this. And again, I've tried to read James Loudon's breeder book, and it's way beyond my knowledge right now. I'm still in chapter 2, and it's like, I've gone back and read chapter 1 3 times now, because I'm trying to figure out, I should have paid a little bit more in science class. I never was book smart. I'm more of a learning why doing type of thing. So that's why I go back to the experience of, if you want to learn to grow, do it. What's the worst you're going to do is kill a plant and learn from that mistake and learn to never do it again, or at least try not to, and have fun with it. It's not the end of the world. And that's what I tell people. They're like, well, how do you know you're doing what you're supposed to be doing? I don't. That's it. That's the fun part, is I don't. There's books on how to do it and give you a baseline, but everyone is different. I can put, 3 plates of food down for my kids, and one will say I'm full after 4 bites. The other one, you look and his plate's licked clean. You're like, holy crap, bro. So it's have fun and have the experience of doing it, and that's where it's like we've said, you find that niche for you. And that's, for me, the funnest part of growing. Obviously enjoying the fruits of your labor. That's, an added bonus, but experiencing that passion and seeing that you've actually made something grow, seed to harvest. You've had ups and downs. You've had arguments. You've had good days and bad days, but you made it through thick and thin. And now you're able to really, just enjoy that, and it's like that farm to table, there's a sense of pride that you have when you can go into your cabinet and pull out a jar of some just fine manicured buds that you grew and show it off to your friends and like, hey, try this out, or it's like when you have a barbecue, you get everybody over there and it's usually everyone's talking over good food. Well, now it's a great plant, Yeah.
I think that's the beauty too, when you've got the ability to find the passion in what you like to do, is showing that off to people. Like, the excitement of showing that off is something else, man. And I think with you being able to have both ends of it, like the medical spectrum and the recreational spectrum, it's really cool because you're finding something that is effect, look, terpene, everything, Now, with that being said, you've grown, you've done things going, overseas for competitions. What are you doing in your process that you feel may be a little different versus the other grower that's getting you to this point?
When I first started, I ran a General Hydroponics 3-part Flora series. I ran it for years. And then I tried soils, different soils on figuring out what worked best for me. I run Roots Organic 707. 4 autos. It's a great base starting medium. It's got all again, I'm no microbiologist to tell you the living stuff of the soil and all that, but I've never had any issues or struggling with trying to sprout, it's always been that simple to where it's like, all right, hey, I do it a certain way. And again, consistency, find out what works. And we all know you just keep going back to what works, you know? And I threw everything at it but the kitchen sink, and I wasn't getting the results. So again, you know, sometimes you got to have that humble kick in the ass moment where you sit back and you're like, all right, what am I doing wrong? Well, the problem is you're throwing everything at it. So when you have an issue, you don't even know where to start to eliminate it, you know, and you're just like, all right, I'm going to try this. So by starting off with a good soil or a good starting medium to where you know your starting ppms, you know what your runoff's going to be. And I found, you know, what works for me, and I've just really dialed it in. I've always kept it really simple after that, and I've always gotten great results to where it's like, I'm not doing anything fancy, you know, I'm not, besides telling them nice things before they go to sleep, nothing crazy, you know. I mean, I'm just a regular grower. I go in there, I hand water all my plants, you know, I look at them, I give them a certain amount, you know, depending on what stage they are, and I usually grow anywhere from 4 to 15 strains at a time, and I'm not giving one strain anything different than I'm giving everything else. It's a baseline all across the board, and that's where some can, you know, you can sit there and feed some more. As we know, some strains will take more, whereas some strains are a little more finicky, but I've always just kept it to where if you keep it simple, you usually have the best results.
Yeah, I think with autos too, there's something to be said about letting them kind of do their thing. You're putting it in the pot size that lets them grow out, and you're not pushing it too much, even in the sense of feeding not as high of a ppm as I have done with a photo. And I've noticed they take off better. They swell up better. They overall do more versus how I try to crop steer with a photo period. It seems like I'm not getting that thickness and that girth. So I definitely could see what you're saying in sense of the smooth, easy start, good soil, and kind of letting them work their way through without pushing too hard.
I looked it up, and Roots Organic 707. It looks like it's got some peat and it's got cocoa in there, pumice perlite, so it's got that aeration, just a whole bunch of nutrition in there, and also some beneficials, bacteria. I think the cocoa peat mix, going heavier on the cocoa, which I think this mix, I don't really know like what the split is between peat and cocoa on this, but I found that the more cocoa heavy mixes are really a lot better for cannabis. I mean, I was using the Bioflower from Bio 365, and man, that's just, the aeration in there is just, I feel it's one of those things that is just underrated. It makes it so much easier. It provides more oxygen in the root zone, less chances of overwatering. Sure, overwatering is still a thing, but there's less chances of it. And yeah, like you were mentioning, you're not trying to reinvent the wheel. You're using what works for you. Now, you briefly mentioned that you are using you used General Hydroponics. I know now you're using Athena. Can you walk us through kind of how you do your feedings?
Yeah, you know, and again, when I found Athena, I met him 2 years ago at Spanibus. You know, JJ's an amazing person. You know, we kind of share a little bit of the same story, and I've always wanted to try them. And when I did, I tell everybody now that I've been running them about 2 years, the only thing bad I can say about Athena is I wish I started sooner, because with this, you know, with the recipe I have, I run the blended line. They do have their handbook, and I've read that handbook multiple times, and page 58 is my go-to for the soil, but I don't follow it to a T. I always start, even with any baseline, I always start at quarter strength, so it's usually about 5 mLs per gallon, you know, just depending on where you're at. And the plants just responded that much better than I noticed with the other brands. I was chasing my tail when the issues would persist and show themselves, you know, and you're like, oh wow, well, you know, what's going on? Whereas with the Athena line, you know, you just find that, and I let the plants tell me. I'll sit there and I'll bump it up. I'm not afraid of a little newt burn, you know. I've grown every fast bud strain, released and unreleased. I've been a tester for them for years, and I've tested strains on high heat, low temp or whatever, cold temp. I mean, I've ran strains in the wintertime at 40 degrees just to see what they'll do, you know, and I've also ran them last year, you know, the same strain at 110 just to see what it'll do in my tent, you know, and that's the fun part of growing, because you'll have some that won't skip a beat, and then you have others that it's like, all right, I know not to run that one in that kind of scenario because it just doesn't like to play ball. But again, and that's, never be afraid to try something new, even if what you do works. You know, just because there may be something out there that's better. Again, I'm not reinventing the wheel, but I can sure as hell make it a smoother ride for me. Because it just depends on the terrain you're going across. Everyone's is different.
Yeah, man. That's well said,
Smart.
actually. I like that.
If you don't mind, how did you get caught up with Fast Buds? Was it just through how was it?
You know, when I started, I think it was a blackberry plant that I had. And I was just amazed at how pretty it was. So I took a couple pictures, posted it online, you know, and they reached out to me. Heather, as a matter of fact, you know, she's an amazing girl. Much love to you. I mean, it developed from there, and now it's like family to me, you know. I mean, they are family to me for sure, 100%, you know. And I started testing for them, you know, and one of the reasons I started joining competitions because they asked, you know, hey, would you be interested? And I'm like, I never even crossed my mind, to be honest. I just grow. I never thought it was on a level of like that. Like you said, I'm just a home grower, you know, like really, you want me to come, like, this is mind blowing. Like, you know, like, I appreciate it. And it's much, you know, pat on the back that you think my stuff's that good. But so, you know, and the American Autoflower Cup was one of the 2023, I think it was the first one I ever entered, and I placed. You know, I couldn't believe it. You know, I was just like, this is mind blowing. You know, and I tell people with the competitions, you know, it's like food. Nobody has the same palate, but you see restaurants that stay open every day. So if you have the opportunity to grow multiple strains and enter, do it. I'll throw in 10, 12 strains if I can, and I have that amount just because. What works for me, or me and Rob, no, we like that nasty funk, you know, throw up, just in your face, feels like you just got socked in your mouth by a tank of gas type thing. And then there's others, the fruity flavors are right now, and I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not my cup of tea. So if you throw more at it, you have a better chance at it, you know. But again, at the end of the day, it was kind of ironic and funny. The one that I least thought was going to win actually placed. And that's why I was like, oh, wow, didn't think that was going to happen, you know, but it was a great strain at the end of the day that everybody enjoyed.
Smart.
Yeah, man. I think that's the cool part is going in so humble, just with low expectations even, and then coming out, you know, winning is nuts. It's one of those things that just kind of gives you that confidence to be like, all right, man, I'm going to try more stuff. I'm going to push myself more and see what else I can do. And it just shows that, you know, starting off with the passion for your son works you to the 100%. Point where if you can grow good enough for medicine for your family, it's going to be quality enough for someone out there in the world. This isn't just some half-ass job. You know what I'm saying? You Dr. Feelgood over there.
100%, you know, and I enjoy the whole, every bit of the plant. You know, I love making extractions. I really enjoy the whole process of hash making, you know, obviously, you know, burning a nice one, you know, I mean, so for me, it's always trying something new, never staying stagnant, you know, and it's, when you get stagnant, you get complacent. Always try to push the limits, you know, I'm not saying push the limits on your whole tent, because you obviously need to know what works and get through a harvest, but you can always put one or two to the side and, you know, try some tricks, have fun with it, see what works, see what doesn't, because again, if you don't, then you're just doing the same thing. Well, it's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So if you're going to sit there and do that, we all know we're not insane, but we just have a passion and enjoy growing. So do it, you know, have fun and run with it. It just happened to be that the journey I took, again, thank the man upstairs, it's a blessing, and it worked out the way it did because I couldn't be more thankful.
You don't know unless you try, and you doing all those experiments. I mean, you found some really good stuff out of doing those experiments, and you've won competitions because of it as well. So, man, hats off to you on that one. Now, I know there are quite a few people that are listening into this that do enter competitions themselves. What advice would you have for them? Like
Rob said, you know, if you set your expectations too high, you're just going to get let down every time. And obviously, every person that enters a competition thinks they're going to win, and it has that to win. So as long as you bring the fire and you really believe that what you have and what you've done is that cup winner, then go for it. Because, like, what do you have to lose? I don't win them all, you know what I mean? But I really enjoy entering them all, as many as I can, you know, because, again, you don't know where you stand unless you look at it. And that's, I think, where a lot of people, we're our own worst critics. So if you can't sit there and really look at yourself in the mirror and say, how can I become a better grower, and let somebody what better way of doing it than letting a blind judge panel test your product that doesn't know what it is and doesn't know if it's an auto or photo, whatever it is. They're just enjoying it, and they're going to give you their honest opinions. So for me, I mean, that's what I mean. Some people almost pay for that, you know. So I appreciate the criticism, even if I score last place. It's like, okay, nothing but up from here. So at least I can try something different and hopefully get better.
And dude, you know what? A last place anywhere means nothing everywhere. Like we've already said this 100 times. Palette means different, and whatever course of judges you get at that particular time, you know what? It would suck for anyone that submitted a citrusy terp if Rob and I were judging. You know?
Yeah, I know.
Because it's like, yeah, I would be willing, or I would be able to remove my bias and still appreciate what I don't like that terp, and I know I don't like it, so I know it's there and it's present, and if I don't like it, you did well. But there's a lot of judges that are going to be like, ugh, you know, and
I hate that kind. Yeah,
I was talking to, I'll leave their name out, but I was talking to somebody who was at the DGC and was explaining that instead of trying all 69 samples, they just narrowed it down to 20 based on visuals. And I think, honestly, as a home grower, you can kind of be like, well, I think you might have honestly overlooked something that might have been really good that someone just didn't trim very well, or something that didn't blossom to be this big, thick-looking bud, right? So, yeah, you know what? It comes down to preference at that particular time. So a loss or a last place, I wouldn't consider it a loss. I consider it a last place or whatever. Means nothing, I don't think, if you're willing to get back to the drawing board, hone in what it is, and then compete the next year, knowing with a little bit of homework what terps took the lead, and you know what were the judges looking for, and what dominates that season, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, no, you know, you're 100% right on that, and it's just, I think it's natural human instinct. We shop with our eyes, so you know it has to have that bag appeal first and foremost, you know, and that's the unfortunate part, because I've smoked some nasty looking shit out there, and it actually turned out half bad. You know, you're like, wow, that was not judging a book by its cover, but that, you know, I judged a book by its cover, you know, and I'm glad, you know, that I went to the next step and I actually sampled, you know, because some of the ones that you know, I'm my own worst critic. I'll sit there and I'll nitpick every little bit about the flower, you know, but again, it's just because I know what I can do, and I know if I can do better, I'm going to try to do better. So I'm not afraid to be harsh with myself. But at the end of the day, you gotta, and it's unfortunate, like you said, you know, because people, when you have that many samples, if you're not given enough time, you got to do what you know. Naturally, you're going to shop with your eyes. Next, you're going to smell it. Then you're going to sit there and, all right, I mean, you know, there's steps that every judge is going to be different. So the process is that much more fun for them, I'm guessing. And especially for me as, you know, a contestant, just because it's like, it's getting judged on so many different ways. So if you do happen to place or even win, it makes it that much more fulfilling for me, because it's like, all right, you know, I know that judge didn't necessarily judge the same thing or the same way that this person judged, because this one liked a bong, whereas this one liked a pipe or a joint. You know, whatever it is, there's different strokes for different folks. And don't ever be afraid to enter. Don't, you know what I mean? Just because it's, the most you have to lose is the product you entered. The most you have to win is the knowledge that you have to gain from it. You know, where do you stand? What can you better yourself? So it's like, come on. I mean, that's what I'm saying. People pay for that kind of knowledge.
You're
absolutely
100% correct. One thing I want to know too, because you kind of touched on this, because I believe that you're 100%. It's a man thing, I think, but being your worst or biggest critic, there's a fine line between being your biggest critic and depression. You know, trying to use that criticism to motivate you, to put that fire underneath your ass so that you can achieve your goals, versus, you know, being just so hard on yourself that it's unrealistic. You are just bringing yourself down. You do need mental fortitude and emotional discipline when growing. What do you think is your biggest challenge? Like, you've got a lot of genetics, dude, and I'm telling you right now, I could not do that. I couldn't do 15 different genetics. I've tried and failed miserably. What's the biggest challenge for you to focus garden and life?
I don't know. I think the biggest challenge for me with just growing in general is not getting complacent. Because, you know, when you find something that works, it's easy to just, you know, put it in cruise control and just let it go. but I just had a very humble pie experience, my last grow. And it was just, I was doing everything I normally do, but I didn't get in there and do enough due diligence. And that's where if you get complacent and you sit there and just do what you know works, that may work 5 times in a row. But, there's going to be that 6th time where it's going to get you a nice rude awakening, and it's a smack back to reality. And I appreciate that, and when I first started, like I told you, I put in 20 plants in a tent, and I told myself if I can get 1 joint out of it, it would definitely give me the boost of confidence I needed, because I am very harsh on myself. I know the level of where I can stand, because for me, I got that joint and it gave me that. I got more than that, thankfully, but it's not setting those goals too far beyond reach to where, like you said, it gets depressing to where you're setting them to where they're unreachable, and if you're not trying to reach, my famous thing is, what is it? Shoot for the star or shoot for the moon. And if you fall short, you're still a star. You know what I mean? It's like, come on, you know what I mean? Just set that goal to where it's like, even to this day, I try to only average an ounce a plant. Yes, I average way more than that, but if I average an ounce per plant, that's still, I can't go buy that ounce at a dispo or wherever you get it from for the same cost that it did for me to grow it. So it's still a win in my book doing that. And by far the confidence that you need, knowing that you were able to do something from seed to harvest. I do grow diaries, so I can go back and mimic a grow almost identical, depending on if, what I'm trying to do or what I'm trying to get out of it. And that's the most important thing, even for new growers, is don't set those goals unreachable. Set them to where you can reach them. And again, not all my plants are perfect. I mean, yeah, you'll have those unicorns where you're like, wow, that thing everything I did just worked out picture perfect. If I could have 100 of those every time, I'd be a happy camper. But that's not the case. You're dealing with a living, breathing thing, you got to feed it. You got to know what it does. And that's the thing to where I'll start at that baseline, and I let the plants tell me, they may not talk in words, but they'll tell you they're pissed off or they're happy, nice, leaves praying. So I'll push it until I see a little bit of burn tips, and I'm not going to freak out. I just know that at that stage, that's the point that you want to push that plant or that strain, So, I mean, have fun with it, run with it, and just try your best, with anything. Give it your all, 110%. And if you do that, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to get let down.
You're absolutely right, dude. Wise words. With Chubbs and the
Well
birds
said.
today, bro. I seriously appreciate you coming and dropping
It's a good vibe.
some gems, dude. You're sitting in a beautiful place. You've got a beautiful
Great
smile
AI.
on your face, and you're enjoying some hard-earned work, man. Living the dream, dude. I'm telling you. Thank you so much for coming on. If anybody wanted to reach out to you, to your mission, and to support, where would they do that?
I'm on IG at Chubbs Guys, I'm on Discord, I'm on Reddit under Chubbs Guys. Luckily enough, that name's not taken anywhere, so generally all across all platforms it's Chubbs Guys, Never be afraid to reach out to me if you ever have any, not even that, even if you want to just say hi and bullshit, it don't even got to be plant related. Always know, you know what I mean? That's the great thing about this community is I'm just like everybody else. I'm just a parent that does it medically,
Hell yeah, man.
Beautiful.
Well, dude, it was an honor to be able to chop it up with you. Looking forward to the next sesh, hopefully in Vegas this year. And yeah, man, appreciate you, brother.
Thanks so much for
100%.
coming on, dude.
So
Thank you guys for having me, and it's always an honor, brother.
Hell yeah, dude. All right, next time in person. Got to make that happen.
Stick around here just after just after our outro, and so we can make sure we get all our P's and Q's. Want to see us out of here?
Yeah. So from the stash, my name is Rob S. Pigeons, Mr. Grow, and Chubbs. We'll see you guys next time. Peace. Growers who are looking for that secret sauce usually are just missing something from their garden. And to help with that, we bring you the Stash Blend Premium Plant Additive. Stash Blend brings beneficial bacteria, silicon, seaweed, humic acid, and has enough macronutrition to help lower the dosages of your base feed too. Unleash your plant's true potential with Stash Blend Premium Plant Additive. Available at Growers House.